We don't think that the active duty military should be used on American streets against Americans.
Today, I have strongly recommended to every governor to deploy the National Guard in sufficient numbers that we dominate the streets. Mayors and governors must establish an overwhelming law enforcement presence until the violence has been quelled. If a city or state refuses to take the actions that are necessary to defend the life and property of their residents, then I will deploy the United States military and quickly solve the problem for them. I am also taking swift and decisive action to protect our great capital, Washington, D.C. What happened in this city last night was a total disgrace. As we speak, I am dispatching thousands and thousands of heavily armed soldiers, military personnel, and law enforcement officers to stop the rioting, looting, vandalism, assaults, and the wanton destruction of property.
He is Mr. Law and Order, and he would bring in the military to put down these protests. The president doesn't want to distinguish between the looters and the protesters. See, the president doesn't want to speak about the killing of Mr. Floyd. The president wants to talk about just looting, because if he's talking about looting, he doesn't have to talk about the killing of Mr. Floyd. And he doesn't want to talk about the killing of Mr. Floyd. And he doesn't want to talk about reforming the justice system. He doesn't want to talk about that. So he wants to say they're all looters. They're not all looters.
I heard what the president said today about dominating and fighting. I know I should be surprised when I hear incendiary words like this from him, but I'm not. At so many times during these past several weeks, when the country needed compassion and leadership the most, it was simply nowhere to be found. Instead, we got bitterness, combativeness, and self-interest. That's not what we need in Boston. It's not what we need right now in Massachusetts. And it's definitely not what we need across this great country of ours either.
It's an inappropriate use of our military, and we have police in Washington, D.C. We have federal police in Washington, D.C. to focus on the federal properties, and that is an appropriate use.
We really need to have the rhetoric all the way at the top of the administration focusing on how to manage these issues and situations without increasing the violence. The issue here should be de-escalation. It should be, how do we listen to people? How do we hear their concerns? And then how do we focus the appropriate law enforcement response on those who are trying to hijack these peaceful protests and engage in looting and violence for the sake of violence? We have governors actively engaged with the National Guard. We have police actively engaged in that. And again, we have seen some tragic results, but we're not at the point of having the Army train its guns on civilians.